Hello and welcome to It's Time for a CRM Checkup, How to Re-Examine Sales Tools. This is an automotive news webinar and it is being brought to you today by VinSolutions. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Dave Versicle. I am the Chief of Editorial Operations here at the Automotive News Group. And before I introduce our speaker, let me tell you how to use one tool in particular to help create a strong webinar. And that tool is your questions. Yes, you can ask them anytime. All you have to do is type those questions into the Q&A box. You'll see that box on the left side of your webinar window. Hit send. Your question will come to me, and I will steer as many as I can to our speaker toward the end of this hour. That speaker today is Mark Vickery. Mark is the Senior Director of Performance Management at Cox Automotive, where he serves the VinSolutions, Xtime, and Dealertrack DMS businesses. In that role, he also leads a team of several hundred performance managers and operations specialists across North America. And joining us, as I said, is Mark. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks, Dave. I'm really glad to be here, and I appreciate you having me. And I hope everybody gets a little something out of this today. And so I'll say good afternoon, because it's definitely afternoon everywhere right now. But if you're watching this on recording, who knows what time it is. But thank you for taking some time and tuning in today. And we are going to talk about the CRM mostly, and with the idea around, are we evolving the CRM to take advantage of, how our world is changing before us and how our industry is changing. So as Dave mentioned, I run performance management for VinSolutions and Xtime and Dealertrack DMS here at Cox. I've been at Cox for, almost 13 years now. And came here from the retail car business 13 years ago. So I like to say everything I have in my life, including my family, I owe to the retail automobile business. So let's start this with a question. When's the last time, you really looked at the CRM? Because if we think of CRM, in my mind, it's really two things, historically. It is, a data warehouse that houses all of our customer data. Everybody we sold a car to, everybody we service a car for, everybody that is considering doing one of those two things. And then it's also a process engine that fires processes. Well, it's all about how we use the CRM and how we set it up. And look, we run into this all the time. When's the last time you looked at your processes? Because the internet manager that set up the processes when you bought the CRM, 4 years ago doesn't even work here anymore. And we maybe now have a franchise that we didn't have 4 years ago. Who knows, right? So when's the last time you looked at it? Because it's possible that things have changed. I mean, if I told you that our industry is changing and I just shut up there, would you believe me? I mean, I think we're in the process of massive change. And I think about it in terms of maybe what it looked like when the internet came into our world, however many years ago that was, 30 years ago, 20, 25 years ago, and Auto by Tel. We started buying leads from Auto by Tel, and I'm old enough to remember those leads coming in on the fax machine, and we'd take them off and give them to people to call customers, right? And none of those people bought a car. But pretty soon, we figured out how to manage those internet leads. And that had a profound impact on how, well, for sure, how customers shopped for cars. They became exposed to all kinds of things like pricing and all sorts of things that they used to have to come into us for. And certainly their ability to research cars was enhanced dramatically. It had a big impact on how people shopped for cars. Well, now maybe what's changing is how people buy cars. And we've got to change along with that. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Because, over the last 20 months, however long the pandemic has been going on, it's reasonable to say that a lot of dealerships have changed the way they're set up. I mean, I have stores I talk to that have, more and more times managers handling, the sales presentation, the numbers negotiation, the F&I process, all one person, and I don't know that that's where we're headed by any stretch of the imagination. For sure, we're selling cars digitally now, which is something that, seemed completely foreign 5 years ago. So the dealership is changing, and I think it's important to think about, how is the CRM evolving along with that, okay? And that is hopefully some of the riddles we'll answer today a little bit. So I think you have to ask yourself, and we're going to talk about all 5 of these, can we, and does the CRM help us, meet customer expectations, which are evolving right before our very eyes? Do we have the ability to personalize the experience? I think that's really, really important. Gone are the days that we control the road to the sale. So we'll talk about that some too. How can the CRM help us to be more efficient, and produce the productivity of our staff? Because we've been dealing with shrinking margins for quite some time, haven't we? So we need tools like this to help us be more efficient, not less efficient, right? And then can we make the in-store experience better for our customers? We'll spend some time on that. And look, how can you use technology? How can the CRM help you to identify what your customers are looking for and when, they're looking for them? So today, in this time together, we're going to talk about, what the CRM should do, what it can do. And I'm going to ask you to use your imagination maybe on some of the technology that's available, right? And how you can address gaps in some of the software solutions you have. I think it's more important than ever that all of your software is integrated well and used well together by your staff, right? And then some tips about how the data in your CRM can help you improve your results. Okay, so modern customer expectations. What does that mean? Well, I think it means really that we have got to have processes and we have to execute on processes that give the control to the customer. And that's uncomfortable for people like me. For many years, we controlled the process in the store. We decided, what happened and when, okay? And by golly, if they're going to buy a car from me, this is what they're going to go through, okay? And we coached in certain groups in certain stores to a very rigid road to the sale, and that's what we did. We were going to grab them by the shirt collar and bring them in the show floor, and we're going to do a needs assessment, and then we're going to go out and show them a car, and then we're going to take a test drive, and we're going to boom, 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 and that's what we're going to do every time. We just don't get to do that anymore. I mean, certainly not in that same way, okay? We have to be able to deliver an experience that the customer wants, and they get to decide what that experience is. Do they want to go through the old way and test drive a million cars? Sure, they can do that. They want to never come into the store and we're going to deliver the car to their house or to Starbucks. They can do that too, okay? And everything in between. And that's the first thing, is that I've got to be prepared to deliver the experience that they want. And it's probably going to be different customer after customer after customer, and where that is going to be a challenge, I think, for us is that means that my staff has to be prepared to deliver every experience too, and that's going to require a lot of coaching and a lot of training on our end. So we did a survey earlier this year, right, where we divided the groups up into we call them thrivers and static. And thrivers are dealers that are telling us that they're having better success than they've ever had, and static are dealers that are kind of the same or maybe gone backwards a little bit. And what's interesting about this to me is the dealers that are thriving today are embracing the move to digital selling. They're excited about it. They see long-term benefits. They're aggressively going after it, right? Thriving dealers are going out of their way to offer more digital options to their customers, and they would tell us that maybe not to as great of an extent as those first couple of categories, but they would tell us that this has all been easier than they anticipated, right? And I would suggest this, all the pandemic did, and I'm not the first person to say this, all the pandemic did was accelerate our car selling into a more digital environment. It's not the reason we were headed here anyway, okay? But it has accelerated that, I think. And for a lot of dealers, this has been a little more natural and easier than they anticipated, right? And so the how I use my CRM has a critical say in all of this, right? And to me, that means I've got to have a CRM that allows me to change processes with what my customers want. If it's all linear, rigid, one size fits all, then I'm going to have a hard time getting my CRM to adapt. I need to have the ability to adapt my CRM to the customer versus adapting my customer to what my CRM does, right? And then I've got to be able to have the ability to use and consume data throughout the process, right? Whether I'm dealing with that customer online or I'm dealing with them in the facility, I've got to be able to have access and understand data, understand what's transpired. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, okay? And then I've got to have the way to have the right integrations that speed up the process, right? I got to know where the credit apps are. I got to know how I'm going to communicate with the bank, and all of those things have to be integrated so that it performs smoothly for the customer. And then, when I think about communication, this is a big thing, and it's not new to like us. It's just new to the car business, and that is, delivering a personalized experience. And some of that means, I got to be able to communicate with them with some known. I've got to know some things about the customer, and I've got technology now that helps me understand, stuff about the customer and where they are in their journey, and it's okay to go there with the customer, right? We do it in everything else we buy. I mean, for goodness sake, if you go on Amazon.com and you search for, I don't know, pick a thing, a kitchen knife, for about 3 weeks, you're going to go on every website you're going to go on, you're going to get served up an ad for kitchen knives, right? So car buying has become, I think, the same thing. And customers want that. They want a unique, personalized journey. They want it to be their journey. Everybody wants that, right? And they don't mind when we use what they've told us to help them. They don't mind us using what we know about them and what they're shopping for. They appreciate it. It makes them feel like they're wanted, right? And This speaks into also how we market to customers. Gone are the days when we can send out an email blast to every email address we have that says some kind of message along the lines of, hey, I've got some cars here, and it'd be really cool if you came in and bought one of them, okay? They know we want to sell them a car, but we now can market to individual customers in a very succinct way. I mean, we can market to them one at a time around needs that affect them, or that we at least think affects them, rather than, people that have bought and not serviced. I'm going to send the same email to all of them. Those are, targeting that's what targeting used to be. We can now be much more direct in how we target, our marketing needs, right? And I got to be able to personalize, what I'm talking to the customer about in a more unique and personalized way. I've got to coach my staff on how to do that, okay? Because if I don't, it's a turnoff. In our survey from last year, 41% of consumers are switched brands because of poor personalization. It's a turnoff when we're not able to adapt to them, and that goes into how we market to them also. This is a great quote from one of our customers. The message has to be very, very relevant. That's something where we can really drop the ball. We have got to be able to target the customers with a message that's specific to what they're looking for at the right time, right? So if we know what they're shopping for, we know what they're looking for, we can send them a message that's relevant to that. And that is going to bear more fruit than any kind of like broad brush, way that we've historically marketed. Now, the same thing, and even more importantly, I think, goes into a personalized sales experience, right? I've got to, and I know I've already said this, but I've got to create a sales process that they're in control of. I don't control that process anymore. They do. And that's going to be hard for a lot of us, I think, to let go of, right? I've got to get to know them. I've got to take the time to look into what they've done, and that's where we drop the ball. If I go back to what we talked about a minute ago and what Justin Harmon talked about is I've got to have a very relevant message. Well, that might mean that I've got to take the time to look into the CRM when I meet them on the show floor. I've got to take the time to review, and I can do this right in front of them. Okay, that's okay. Mr. and Mrs. Customer, have you been shopping already? Yes, you have. Well, let's look and see what you've done so far. Oh, great. You've had your car appraised by Kelley Blue Book. Did you bring the Monte Carlo with you? Yes, you did. Fantastic, right? I've got to take the time to review what they've done so that I don't ask them to do it again, right? And that is one of the big sins that we're executing every day now, and that is making people redo things they've already done or finding out from them that they've already done it when our software should tell us what they've already done. Okay, that's the key thing, and that's not very personalized, is it? If they've spent hours shopping online and interacting with our software on our website, and we make them do it all over again when they came in the store. That just doesn't work for anybody, right? They need us to pick up where they left off online, and we've got to get really good at that. And our software has to be able to be used in a way that allows us to do that. This is a really hard format because I don't get to see anybody nodding off or, rolling their eyes or laughing. Somebody's laughing right now, I'm sure. But hopefully we're making some headway here. So speed. We've always been, we still talk about response time. And at Vin Solutions, right on the front page of our CRM, when you log in, it talks about response time, okay? And I'm not telling you that it's not important to have a sense of urgency when you respond to your customers. Of course, that's important. But it's not the only important thing, okay? I'll take 10 minutes to respond to every lead, but I'm going to take the time to read everything thoroughly, and I'm going to make sure that I communicate to them about what it is exactly that they're looking for and answer the questions that they ask. And what you're going to do is you're going to respond in 30 seconds every time with a 4-car quote, no matter what they ask. You know, over a spread of 100 leads, I'll win. Those 10 minutes where I take the time to understand what they're after and answer their questions, I think is really, really important. And we miss that boat sometimes, right? Because these customers, they expect you to know something about them. You know, whether it be at a restaurant that you go to and you go there all the time, I want them to know, you know, that I've been there before. I kind of like to know if they know what I like to drink. You know, that makes me feel good. Well, it's going to be any different in the car dealership either. And we have an opportunity to know that with technology now, that can help us, you know, deliver on that promise. Okay. And you know, these are stats that change. Like, I don't know if I ever believe all these numbers. Like 7 hours used to be more. That number's maybe going down a little bit because people are more efficient with how they collect their information. Is 76% the right number? I don't know. I think we can agree it's most people though, right? So how does the CRM help us make salespeople more productive? You know, for a living, I try to get dealers to use their Vin Solutions CRM in a more effective way, or to get better results out of their Vin Solutions CRM. You know, and I run into some of the same sort of roadblocks in dealership and group at one after the other all across North America. Okay, and people doing their tasks or having overdue tasks is probably the biggest problem I'll see in any dealership time after time after time. And you know what? Most of that is leadership's fault. Most of that, it's not lazy salespeople, okay? It's us asking salespeople to complete unnecessary tasks, or tasks that are, you know, maybe could be handled in an automated way, right? If I make 5-car Fred make 30, I don't know, birthday phone calls, and you know, how many of those calls are going to result in an appointment of somebody buying a car? Some, okay, and it's probably good to you know, acknowledge that milestone. But I've got my most expensive talent on the phone calling people that they figure out pretty quickly doesn't bear a whole lot of fruit. What's that going to do to their, you know, enthusiasm of ripping through their tasks in the CRM that day? Probably not going to help it. Okay, so I've got an opportunity to use the CRM to make them more productive, and let me explain how. You know, so this is going to come down to data collection, right? How do I collect data, and how do I ensure that it is consistently entered into the CRM? And because, you know, right now you might be saying, geez, Vickery, thanks for telling me that data collection is important. You know, well, if I'm going to take advantage of automated tools, can I send a text message if I haven't collected the cell phone number? Can I send an email if I don't have an email address? No, I can't. Okay. And so I've got to live once and for all And it's always been important, darn it. But once and for all, if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. And I cannot have, around here we call it, if it's not in VIN, it's a sin. Okay, use whatever term you want. But if I've got people texting customers just from their phone and not from the CRM tool, terrible mistake. I mean, for a whole host of reasons, I don't want salespeople communicating with my customers on their phone. I want them communicating with them on my CRM. So number one, I capture the conversation. That's the main thing I want. I ensure that, what is going out, right, because it's coming out of the CRM. That's really important. And I've got to have it all. And the only way I can deal with the future is if everything is happening out of the CRM, and I've got to have the sales team engaging in the CRM so I can control what the message is, right? I can't use the same process and the same message with all customers, right? I've got to set up the CRM so that it allows my people the flexibility to deliver a personalized experience, right? And then I've got to train on how to do it, right? If they don't know how to use the tools, then that's on me. I've got to put effort into, using the resources maybe the CRM company has, but then internally, how am I coaching utilization? So on this slide, you can see a QR code that will take you to a book that will give you some training and your team some training on how to use the CRM for communicating with a modern customer, right? That's going to, bring in thoughts on how to use different, ways, text versus email, right? Phone, how to respect customers' time. It's a useful free book that you can download and get something out of. So I'm trying to linger on here so you can take a picture of that bad boy. So speaking of those birthday processes or anniversary processes, in a typical store, 2/3 of my sales rep's time is spent on non-revenue activity, non-revenue generating activity. That's too much. I've got my most important resource spending 2/3 of their time doing things that doesn't generate activity. I mean, no one will argue that that's not a problem. And the same 2/3 is spending their time in technology. I mean, am I better off having a salesman talk to a customer or using software, right? I think all of us would rather have, our salesman talking to a customer, okay? And so much of that activity, so much of that 2/3 activity that's on non-revenue generating activity can be done in an automated way. We have virtual assistants now that do the work for us. We set up the processes in the back end, but, the virtual assistant is sending out the happy birthday text message or the anniversary email or the, after hours communication, I can, and this doesn't take away the need for my BDC or my salespeople to be in the CRM, not at all, but we can just limit the non-revenue generating, the mundane activity that we know is useful, right? We can automate that to the CRM to do that for us, so that my high-powered people can focus on what they do best, and that's selling cars, right? Artificial intelligence is in every part of our life. Heck, I can't watch TV now. We got rid of cable, and so I've got YouTube TV at home. Well, I can't turn on the TV without this thing knowing what I watched last time, making suggestions to me. Doesn't bother me at all, right? That's just how we live our life now. Well, why can't we be the same way when we're selling cars? Okay. Because the more time I free up, it allows my salespeople to focus on right now tasks that bears fruit, right? Digital retail leads, and we know this. And digital retailing has exploded since the pandemic started. So we've got a lot of data around this. Digital retail leads close 46% higher than traditional internet leads. I mean, almost half again is much higher. And why is that? I mean, how many times are you going to go in to some dealer's digital retailing tool and have your car appraised and submit a credit app and do all of those steps and send it into the dealer, versus, in the old days, just sending out a request a quote form on the website. I mean, you're going to do it, less often. You're going to do it when you're more further down the road, right? So that's why those close at a higher rate. I want people focused on that, right? And those leads are generating more gross profit in a compressed margin industry like the retail car business. I mean, that's not a bad thing, okay? They are, and that just proves kind of what we always knew. People will pay more if they get what they want. People will pay more if they get to do it the way they want to do it. We've always known that. I just don't know that we've known how to, capitalize on that. Well, now we have technology that helps us do that, right? And we're going to get to the sale a lot faster with those leads. So I want to emphasize a couple of things here. One, the CRM hasn't totally changed, right? I just want to create an environment so my staff is focused on customer engagement, right? Rather than just, the birthday emails, anniversary emails is probably the best example, right? I want them focused on, real engagement with real people, right? I also have a chance with technology today to identify customers that aren't very happy with us, right? How many times has your salespeople, come up to you and said, "Hey, boss, I really ticked off Mr. and Mrs. Customer. They're really mad at me." I mean, never, right? But we now have technology that can read the incoming emails and text messages and alert managers to customers that probably need some additional attention. And how much would you like the ability to talk to a customer that shared with your sales rep that they weren't happy, and a manager could call them and say, "Hey, I just saw your email to 5-Car Fred. Tell me what's on your mind. How can I help you?" Would that not generate a few car deals? I think so. So we talked earlier about improving the in-store experience. And CRM we would think of traditionally kind of as the thing that gets them in the store. Okay, so how does the CRM improve the in-store experience? Well, and we've already talked about this a little bit, but I've got to use the CRM so that I make sure that I understand what they've done before they came in. Okay, it's not as easy as saying, "Have you been on the internet?" Okay, I have the ability to see what they've told me. They've told me, maybe what they're shopping for. They've told me, what they're trading in and what Kelley Blue Book or whatever said the car was worth. I might even have a deal structure from them already. I need to acknowledge all that. I need to take the time to do that homework before we start walking out looking at cars, okay? And if I know they're coming in and I've got an appointment, I need to review all that before they get there. That's just got to become the way I do things. I want to review the customer record. And it's okay to review the customer record while they're with you. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Nobody has a photographic memory, at least I don't, okay? I want to make the customer feel like they're important to me. And what better way to show that to them than reviewing what they've already done with your store before we start talking about the car, right? And praise them for the work they've done. Oh my gosh, this is so. You guys are really buttoned up. I'm really glad to see we already said we got a credit app here, and we've already appraised your car. Is the car here? Oh, great. I want to acknowledge what they've done and make them feel like it was worthwhile, right? And then keep the process moving down whatever path they want to go down. Okay, so the CRM, or at least the technology that feeds the CRM, can help us determine what customers are looking for. Okay, and some of this applies to our automotive intelligence product. But no dealer would disagree. Well, apparently 14% do. No dealer would disagree that having accurate customer data is a priority. You got to have customer data, right? And dealers are telling us that they're pretty good about collecting customer data. Okay, we're getting better about asking. You can't check into a Marriott hotel without them asking you, "Is your email address still? Do you still live at blank?" And we're getting better at taking that lead ourselves, right? But dealers are also telling us that they're not very great at leveraging data to identify opportunities. That's where the improvement opportunities lie, okay? Gosh, I can remember, so I've been at Cox almost 13 years now, so this was probably 15, 16 years ago, and I had a service manager that was telling me he was going to pay his service advisors $1 for every email address they collected on the service drive. I go, oh man, that's great. What are we going to do with them? Well, I don't know. We're just going to have the email address. Well, I don't need to pay $1 for something I'm not going to use. Yeah, it'd be great to have email addresses, but what are we going to do with them? And that's where we've got to be able to use the data. So we've got tools now that allows us to make use of the data and makes it actionable. I can get alerts to people that are shopping for cars. So they're in my system because they've been a customer of mine in the past, or they've considered doing business with me in the past, and now they're shopping for a car again. I haven't talked to them in years, okay? But now they're shopping on my website again, and I know it because my CRM is telling me that that's what's happening, right? And I can get real insight into their browsing behavior, what they're looking for, and what they have going on right now. This allows me to now market to them or communicate to them about something that's important, to them. And I can only do that if I've collected the data. So, we based on their shopping behavior, we can identify customers that have telling us that they're ready to buy. They're more likely to buy a car right now. We know through their shopping when they really want to buy a Chevy or a Toyota or a BMW. Okay, and it's really, really accurate based on their shopping behavior, right? And maybe not as strong, but we can identify what specifically what car they're looking for. So if you've got somebody that is likely to buy a car soon, and they're probably going to buy a Chevy, and you're a Chevy dealer, how about, would you agree that contacting that customer might be a good idea? Because waiting for the internet form that's old news. We've talked about my website conversion rate is. Well, I'm not saying that's not important, okay? But we have the ability now, if we don't have to wait for that form to start the communication process. So, like we talked about at the beginning, and we're almost done. Good news, right, folks? You've got to find ways to use the CRM to do these things, right? Can you meet your customers' expectations? I don't know if modern is even the right word, but I know this. I've got to be able to sell a car in the way the customer wants to buy it. And my people have to be in tune with that. And very likely, the CRM has to help lead the charge on how I'm communicating with the customer. I've got to be able to have a tool and a staff that will personalize every customer communication. As soon as it becomes static and the same customer after customer, it's probably not going to meet the needs. And then how can I use this technology to boost productivity, whether it be through virtual assistants that do automated text and email communication either after hours or at certain time intervals in the life cycle journey, or just handling some of the more mundane tasks that I execute on, like an internet lead and things of that nature. My tools can help me be more productive, right? And then I think I can improve the in-store process by ensuring that I am honoring the work that customer has done online before they ever came in on the asphalt, okay? And then act on, determining, what they're looking for and when. Act on, if they've given negative sentiment to my team, I want to be able to react to that proactively. And then, we've been through a lot in the last year and a half. We've had this pandemic, and a lot of our stores, closed the doors and furloughed people, and we come out of it, and now we have inventory shortages we're dealing with, and oh my gosh, it's every time we turn around, there's some new challenge that we have to overcome. But the good news is the CRM today can give you the freedom to exceed expectations regardless of the market conditions. So here's another pamphlet or guide that we can provide for you. Just use that QR code, and we will share some tips on how to engage customers in today's world. All right, so that's the end of our time here today. I know that Dave has been collecting some questions. So, Dave, you got anything we can go over?
Mark, yes, I do. It's the end of the time for your formal presentation, but we do have time for Q&A. So we've got a bunch of questions that have come in, and certainly have room and time for more. So please ship them my way, and we will get this going. Question number one, sir. What common mistakes do you see salespeople make in using customer data that I should avoid?
Well, that's a good question, Dave. I think, earlier we were talking about understanding what the customer is doing and when they're doing it and why they're doing it, and now I can reach out and they want me to do it and all that stuff, right? Well, I can't be creepy about it, and I think that I've got to have I've got to take the time to coach my staff and load their lips a little bit on what exactly to say. Like, I don't know that I want to start a conversation off with, "Hey, Mr. Customer, I see you're on my website right now looking at a Trailblazer. Do you want a white one or a black one?" I don't know that I want to be that direct, right? So I think it's okay to send them messages that are consistent with what they're looking for, I don't know that I just want to come right out and make it sound like I've got some, camera in their office. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. A related question, you said that 41% of consumers have switched brands because of poor personalization. Could you give some examples of poor personalization? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so I think that I'll use the oldest one in the book, and this might be the easiest thing for us to overcome. I solicit a credit app submission on my website. They take and now with digital retailing, that's a significant part of the process, right? They take the time to fill out the credit app. Okay, the customer gets to my building, and they're ready to buy a car, and the first thing I do is shove a paper credit app in their face and ask them to fill it out. When they've already done that. They've already told me that they're trading in the Monte Carlo, and yet as I'm working through, they've taken a test drive or getting ready to put a car deal together, and I'm going to say, so do you have a car you're trading in? What do you mean? I already told you that I'm trading in a car. Not only that, I appraised it on your website, right? And those are examples right there that are just turnoffs. And when we say brand, how about just say dealer? They might go buy the Chevy from somebody else, but they don't want to buy it from you because you didn't care about all the work they already did in advance. Does that make sense, Dave?
It sure does. We will move on to the next question. What do you need to teach sales managers to better use their CRM?
Yeah. Starters, I've got to make that a priority in their life, okay? And the best example I can give, and I'm kind of an old timer, I'll readily admit it. Those of you that saw my picture at the beginning, that was taken a while ago, so I'm even older than that. But you take a used car manager that's been around a while, and he or she comes to work in the morning, and the front line is all jacked up and crooked, and the cars are dirty, and there's a pickup truck next to the cars and a car next to the pickup truck. Well, what's he going to do? I mean, before he even pours his first cup of coffee, he's got somebody out there cleaning up the front line. Nobody has to tell him to do it. Nobody has to encourage him to do it. Nobody has to remind him to look for it. It's just in his DNA to look at the front line of the lot when he pulls into work in the morning, okay? I got to have the same kind of urgency around attention to activity in the CRM as that, right? I can't start my day unless I look to see how many appointments I have scheduled today. I can't end my day unless I look to see how many tasks didn't get completed, or how many appointments didn't show up, or how many appointments weren't confirmed, That's just got to be the stuff I do out of reflex. It's not going to be something that I do on Tuesdays because I'm bored. It's what I do every single day, and then I've got to get them enforcing that with their staff. That if it's not the biggest misnomer about CRM. And I'm sorry, Dave, you touched a nerve here. The biggest misnomer with CRM is that it's a salesperson's tool. And I guess it is, okay? But the success in the CRM does not rely on salespeople. It relies on managers. And if I'm not managing from the top down with the CRM, if I'm not conducting my daily Save a Deal meeting in the CRM, if I'm not conducting my Saturday morning training using CRM, then it's never going to be important to the salespeople ever. It never will. I mean, so the management and CRM utilization is, in my mind, is the most important thing.
Right. Next question is more like a comment, but this listener said, I like the reference that you made to the knives, the targeting marketing for shopping for knives, but I just need to know when to stop messaging when the individual customer has completed a sale. So could you turn that into a response.
Yeah. So when the customer has, you mean when they've purchased a car, when do I stop talking to them?
Yes, that's how I read it.
Never. They're your customer. I don't think you should ever stop talking to them. And you know, because if they bought the car, aren't they going to need to change the oil down the road? You know, who's talking to them about that? You know, who's talking to them about, you know, the next car they want to buy? Or I'm sorry, they already bought a car, so I'm done with them. No, sir. You know, I'm never going to stop talking to them, and I'm always going to find the right relevant conversation to have with them, though. When is it time to service the car? When is it time to upgrade the warranty? When is it time to replace the car because now I'm in a positive equity situation? When is the time, you know, that is, when is the time to get the warranty, you know, or the recall taken care of, right? So I don't think I ever stop, okay? But the key is, Dave, is the topic of my communication with them. I need to make a real strong effort for that to be relevant. And the only way I can do that, I think, that the only way I can really do that is if I'm communicating with every person individually. So I need software that allows me the opportunity to communicate on a one-to-one way. Otherwise, I'm stuck. Hey, you know, we're dealing from the ceiling and your car might be in equity. Why don't you come in and maybe we can lower your payment? I mean, okay, you know, but that is, and I hope I understood the question right, but I think that the one big disconnect, Dave, that a lot of dealers have is the CRM is just a sales tool, right? So listen, common sense tells me that if I just sold a car to Mr. and Mrs. Customer, well, they're probably not buying another car this week, right? And so I got to feed my family this week, so I need to focus on talking to people that might buy a car this week. I get it. That's why I've got to have the CRM set up to complete, you know, automated activity, so that we continue to be in front of that customer with relevant information. And when they are ready to buy the car, whether it be a year from now or 3 years from now or 5 years from now, we're the first place they're going to come to.
Okay. You talked about spending more time on customer engagement, but how does that play out in a digital sales environment? Obviously, a big difference between what you can do to engage a customer in a showroom and virtually.
Yeah, I think what I mean by that is I want my for lack of a better word, I want my smart people focused on communicating with customers that are in the process of doing something, right? Versus, you know, throwing darts at the dartboard and calling people just because I'm calling people. Heck, I got a phone call a couple of weeks ago from somebody I bought a car from one of my kids like 7 years ago. And he called and asked me how I was doing and if I had any car needs. Well, to me, that's not any different than ripping a page out of the phone book like 1978 style and saying, hey, just call everybody on this page and let me know when you're done. I want to focus the communication, the outbound, you know, communication effort focused on people that I think really do want to talk to me and probably need to talk to me.
Okay. Time for one more question, Mark, and it's all about getting buy-in from fellow employees. How can I incorporate a virtual assistant into my sales process and get my salespeople to embrace it?
Well, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. And I should add something in the presentation, you know, if I do this again, to talk about that, because it's really important, I think, that you get your salespeople in the canoe with what we're trying to use these tools to do. Okay, you've got to tell them what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how they benefit from it. And I don't know how each individual store might deal with, an up process and, how they capture customers and, if they show activity in the CRM, is it my customer no matter what? I mean, I don't know the answers to all of those questions, right? But they've got to know that all I'm using the virtual assistant to do is to communicate with the customer during times that it's not reasonable that I'll be able to communicate with them live, or about things that they don't need me to communicate. You don't need me I don't need you, Mr. Salesman, to call up and text a customer and say, hey, it's been 2 years since you took delivery of your car. How's it going? I mean, I can use the virtual assistant to do that for me, right? What I need you to do is when they respond to that text and say, I'm doing great. Hey, by the way, do you have any red ones? I'm ready for a new one. That's when I need you, okay? The virtual assistant is going to allow us to touch more people when they want to be dealt with and about things that I don't need you to do for me, so that we can reach more people and generate more activity and get more leads and you can sell more cars. I mean, but I've got to have a communication, show them how in VIN, the interaction with a virtual assistant is in the customer record, which they have access to, right? They can see the communication, and we're really doing it for them. They got to know that we're doing it for them, not instead of them. I hope that makes sense.
It sure does, Mark. Thank you very much. Thank you for getting us into your canoe, so to speak. Excellent presentation and thorough answer to all of the questions. If you learned something from this session, please tell your peers about it. The recording is going to be available in about 1 hour, and you'll find it at autonews.com/webinars. That's where you can also step back and get access to those QR codes that you might not have snapped earlier. And as we draw to a close here, a survey is going to pop up on your screen. Your feedback does help us get better, so please take a few seconds to fill those surveys out. It's short, I promise. And finally, thanks once again to Mark and VinSolution for bringing us this presentation. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And on behalf of everyone at Automotive News, have a great rest of your day. So long.